COMMIT is a committee of the Rotary Club of Stratford, Ontario. At its core, COMMIT is about empowerment, helping individuals and communities in remote villages of Nicaragua gain the tools, knowledge, and resources needed to create a better future. The Sewing Co-op is a natural extension of this mission. In the very small village of Casa de Piedra, a simple yet powerful skill, sewing, is transforming lives. What may seem like just fabric and thread is in reality a lifeline for these women. Not only do they acquire a sense of pride for this newfound skill, it also continues to offer them a path to self-sufficiency and financial independence. Through the new Sewing Co-op, women are not only learning a trade, but gaining the ability to support their families, contribute to their communities, and build a better future. We see this in action in San Luis, where a thriving co-op of women gathers 4 times a week sharing skills and resources. They are now producing clothing and school uniforms for purchase in other communities. This is the power of service. A single skill can create lasting change, not just for individuals, but for entire communities. By equipping these women with knowledge and resources, we are not just providing them with a trade, we are investing in sustainable solutions that will ripple through generations.
Thank you very much. If you can please be seated. And Pat, Marg, and Dan, if you could come over to this side, please. So we'll just get your attention for a few minutes. So if I can get your attention, please. Thank you. So the first one here, you've seen Elizabeth Gaffney rolling around the room, and she'll be coming more to you. This is for tonight. Again, this is for your special Rotarian friend. $5 to get their name nominated, $30 to get their name exempted. This money is tax receivable, and then also the important thing is if you want to be on stage or see a friend under hypnosis with the humorous hypnotic ability, you're going to see it tonight. So $5 end polio is where the proceeds go. So we're all going to end polio. Sorry, somebody's yelling something? Can't hear it. Okay. So Elizabeth Gaffney's over here. I'm going to roll the cart and I'll get it off the stage in a moment. She'll be coming around. You can pay by debit or credit card at the front or cash, $5 to get a name put in there. End polio, folks. It's one of our important missions. At this point in time, I'm going to ask our 3 breakout session speakers to come forward to give our appreciation. Pat, Dan, and Marg, let's give it up for them. So just a sound check, how am I doing in the back corner, Jerry? Jerry Thuss? Jerry Thuss? Jerry Thuss? Can you hear me, Jerry Thuss? Perfect, okay. He also made him pay attention too. So thank you, Jerry, appreciate that. So if you had who got to go to Pat's on international service? So I attended Pat, and she does a great job keeping people on time. And the speakers, it was a speed dating round, which was great. So on behalf of the Rotary Club of Stratford, thank you very much for speaking about international service and changing lives. So I can do them in any order that I want. Who got to go to Marg's presentation on peacekeeping? What an awesome and what an ability that we had Marg, and a privilege to have her come and speak to us to make the world a better place. We heard from the youth, you want to change lives, invest in Rotary and youth. So Marg, some of these you're probably intimately familiar with. On behalf of our club, thank you very much for speaking. Thank you. Now, Dan Kane, who went to AI with Dan Kane? Great. And the other thing is, Dan heads our technology side. He is, I call him incoming president because he's only a few meetings away from being the president of the Rotary Club of Stratford. So Dan, I don't have a gift for you. No, don't worry. He's speaking tomorrow, and Rotary, we also don't waste money. We don't give 2 gifts. So Dan will get his gift tomorrow. So let's give them all a warm, so thank you. Just before I introduce the speaker, a couple of things on the back table I want to remind you about. The silent auction isn't about paying the least amount of money. Please bid generously. There's a lot of beautiful clothing up there. There's a lot of experiences. There's great beer. There is a Paul Harris Fellow up there. So a Paul Harris Fellow, if I'm not mistaken, is $1,000 US if you were to purchase it. There is no tax receipt for this, as the district is unable to give a tax receipt. But I'd like to see people, this is in Canadian dollars, my US friends. This is a 40% discount for our American friends here today. Please bid on that. The money will go, we're going to talk about the 4 charities that it will go to. It's number 9 up there. So please, at lunch, at breaks, let's bid this stuff up. The other one, we'll talk again about the experiences this afternoon. The warehouse tour, we have 15 spots left. I played around on the app because I was pitching, use your app, use your app. I couldn't find it on mine. So if you'd like to go, it's $15 Canadian or $15 US. We will take your money at par. So, but go to the front reception desk and they will sign you up. So as of a few minutes ago, there's still 15 spots. We'll talk about your opportunities for doing things this afternoon because we'll have lots of great stuff going on. So coming up on stage, Dr. Mary Jean, we're going to hear from Dr. Mary Jean Gallagher. She's an educator. She's part of the Rotary Club of Windsor-Roseland since 1991. She's a past president. Lifelong passion we're going to hear about for improving our world. Director of Education for the Greater Essex County District School Board, which is in the Windsor area. She led Ontario's successful education reform as Assistant Deputy Minister of Student Achievement for the province of Ontario. She's significantly improved literacy and graduation rates across 5,000 schools. She's the CEO of her own company, MJ Gallagher and Associates. She does education development programs to governments and schools in 26 countries on 6 continents. She's an author. The devil is in the details, and isn't that true? And it's system solutions for equality, excellence, and student well-being. Rotary has brought her all around the world. She's been to Brazil to establish and help establish a university, to India, what we talked about, on polio immunization, South Africa on vocational training. Mary Jean and her husband Bob have hosted 12 Rotary Exchange students. 12, wow, that's incredible. And Mary Jean sees volunteerism just as an extension, and it's a catalyst to allow others to come together in neighborhoods, both globally, locally, and more successful places in which to live. Please, please give a very warm welcome to Mary Jean Gallagher. Thank you.
One, turn on the microphone so that you will be able to hear me. Number 2, turn on my timer so that you won't be listening to me all day. Because one of the things you'll probably discover is that I get pretty excited about the work that we do as Rotarians in changing our world. And I happen to believe that our work is more important than it's ever been, given the conditions that we now face. I do have to thank Jim and Diane Ives for talking to your governor about giving me this opportunity. So I do thank you for that. They've been good friends of ours in District 6400, and they're one of many people in this room who have migrated to your district. They were great when they were in 6400, and I'm sure you are taking them even further in their Rotary journey. I do want to thank you. Let me turn on my clicker here. Now I think I got my homework done. I do want to thank you for this opportunity, and I will tell you, my glasses are going to make me crazy, and probably you as well. I had cataract surgery about 5 months ago, and I am not at all accustomed to not being able to see the faces to whom I'm speaking, if I can read any of my notes. and not being able to read my notes if I'm actually connecting with you. So I haven't figured that out. I think I'm going to order a pair of bifocals that are just plain glass on top, but I'm not there yet, so bear with me. Anyway, I want to thank you, actually, for your very kind introduction along the way, and for this, in particular, for this opportunity to share time with you. Because to me, I love speaking to Rotary groups. And I do that because I know that Rotarians are incredibly special people, right? They're people who have the ability to touch every corner of our globe. And I have no doubt very soon, other worlds beyond. They're people who, when they touch someone or some other place on our globe, they leave a path of success, a path of people whose lives are bettered. And I know as well, and that'll be part of my message today, that when we touch anywhere else in the globe, those touches ripple. They touch people that we have no idea, and they change their lives too. And so one of the things I want to do is remind you of that power that we have in our hands and in our souls and in our checkbooks, because it all takes some money to move it, right? And in the connections that we make and that we have and that we can take advantage of as we go forward. I also am pleased to speak with you because I know how important your Rotary work is, and I know how important your time with family and your workplace is. So for you to have taken time, that most precious of all commodities, to invest in your Rotary learning and your Rotary sharing is really important. Now, when I was talking to your governor, we were talking about change. And Brittlestar mentioned it last night, the conference theme, right? That essentially we want to build peaceful horizons through adaptive action. And that, I think, speaks to the time that we're in. Our world is changing so fast. If we haven't figured out how to start adapting every moment of every breathing day, we're in deep trouble. And you can pick out the organizations in our societies and in our communities that haven't learned to adapt. They're the ones with a lot of empty pews. They're the stores with people no longer coming through their door. So we need to figure out how we can, in fact, learn to adapt. And one of the ways that I would submit to you that we need to do that is through something that I refer to as being open to learning. Because I know that if you were to combine, as many groups have, Rotary with being open to learning on a personal level and a club level, that we will multiply our impact and extend our reach. And so, today, what I'd like to do is to really hit on three things. To first of all, reflect on our work together in Rotary and its impact on our lives and others. And secondly, to share our stories, but not just share our stories, to intently and intensively learn as we share our stories. Because that learning translates into better outcomes for our communities, our clubs, and for a lot of very vulnerable people around the world. And the next thing I'd like you to extend to you is an invitation for you to build more peaceful horizons. An invitation for you personally to become more open to learning as a strategy to build those more peaceful horizons in your personal lives and in your neighborhoods here, in your district, and in your neighborhoods all around the world. Now, I grew up on a farm not very far from here, Port Dover, just a short little distance. One of my big memories with big feelings associated with it from my high school days was climbing on a school bus and driving to Stratford, not only to attend plays, but also at another time of the year to participate in a drama festival. And I will tell you, when you're 14 years old and you're supposed to sing a solo in a drama competition, and you are standing on the Elizabethan stage here in Stratford, it comes home really quickly that theater is huge. Doesn't look that way when you're sitting in like the 8th or 10th row. But it's an amazing place, and you have built an entire community around that. And so I congratulate you. I have to tell you, I am so impressed with the work that the Rotary Clubs here do. Rotary Clubs right across your district. Anyway, moving on. I grew up in this farm not far from here. My memories of my childhood are filled with sunshine and green fields, with nice breezes, etc. But today, our world feels a whole lot more dangerous than that. It's like it's hurtling forwards or backwards at about the same pace, I think. It seems so much more chaotic. Everything's happening faster. And I used to think it was because I'm getting to a certain age and maybe I'm turning into one of those crabby people who just wasn't like that in my day. But that's not true. Everything is happening faster. And in fact, it feels like everything's pulling apart because so much of it is. There's anxiety all around us, especially among our youth and children. And I will say to you that I believe deeply that Rotary is one of the answers to that. We didn't see a lot of anxiety that was soul-destroying on this stage with those young people. But we see it in so many of our kids. I actually believe that right now in our world, we are choosing confrontation and anger far more than we should. And yet, in Rotary, if we were open to learning, we could create peace everywhere, in our families and in ourselves. But we first have to be really able to learn, to be open to learning from each other and from what is happening around us. Now, what is this open to learning business? What does she really mean by that? It's a term we used extensively in my work in education, particularly at the provincial level, as we worked with educators, schools, and districts to get them to approach change differently. It's not easy for a teacher to change how they teach kids. They got 30 kids in front of them or so. They've been teaching for a long time. Here in Ontario, mostly, they've been pretty successful. So part of what we needed to do was to help them see that they could reach the kids that they didn't think they could reach in new and different ways. And that as individual teachers, all 245,000 of them across the province, they had the power to give kids lives that they otherwise wouldn't have. So what do I mean by open to learning? I mean building a sense of curiosity, a desire to focus on figuring things out, slowing down our rush to reject someone else's thinking, exploring instead in the moment with the purpose of learning what it is they're thinking. And also in this world of imagination that looks real, seeking feedback and evidence, real evidence, about what works in what we do and what doesn't. We heard examples of that in our President's Rep presentation in terms of the use of data and evidence to tell us whether something is worth continuing to invest. Now, I risk here probably having you think I'm talking about some airy concept that teachers and academics like to talk about. a theory or a hypothesis at best, this open to learning thing. But I want to share some examples to illustrate that as we move forward. My first example comes from my professional work in Ontario. After 35 years teaching and leading schools and school districts, I was asked by our Premier to lead a drive for improved student achievement across our province. 5,000 schools, and his goals, set in 2003-04, it was Premier McGuinty, were to improve literacy and numeracy in the elementary school years and to increase the percentage of secondary school students who graduated on time. Now, I consider those to be the two golden tickets that open the door to a lifetime of learning for our kids and our adults. High levels of literacy and numeracy, high graduation rate. And so away we went at it. Now, we now know in hindsight that our goals at the time were too narrow, but they felt pretty big at the time. The Toronto Star headlines were Ontario's failing schools back in the 90s. And we were failing people, not just individual students, but whole groups of students. Ultimately, as we looked at it, we said, okay, the problem's pretty straightforward. 5,000 schools, 235,000 teachers. We have to help them understand how they might be able to explore something we called changing the work on the student's desk, changing the relationship between teachers and all students, not just the ones who came from homes that were well prepared for learning, right? To work towards every school asking questions and becoming deeply curious about how they could change. And I'm going to quickly share our results because they are instructive and they validate my theory about open to learning, being a predecessor, a precursor to change. What I'm going to show you right now represents our provincial test results on our grade 6 writing test for every school in the province, right? And I started working with the ministry in about early 2000s and continued until 2015. And here's what happened on our test results for our grade 6 students in writing. 54% of them met or exceeded Ontario's results. They went to 80%. This is 80% of everyone, by the way. This includes developmentally challenged kids, etc. Because we didn't want any school spending their time figuring out who they could exclude from the test. If the kid was excluded from the test, they counted as someone who had not yet succeeded. We weren't interested in building numbers that made schools look good. We were interested in having numbers that allowed schools to really evaluate what was happening as we went forward. Now, by the way, the grade 6 writing test, actually all of our tests in Ontario are one whole scale above the international PISA tests. A kid has to perform higher than the international standard in order to be considered having met or exceeded our standards. They have to be able to take passages and read them from 3 different sources and be able to make an argument, like put forward an advocacy letter in which they not only cite those sources and their own knowledge, but they express those things in which they have more or less confidence, right? This business of being able to tell what's real. It's harder all the time. And we brought that number up. These were the girls. These were the boys. Welcome to my world. We did not solve the gender problem. We did, however, do something incredibly important that I wouldn't have believed was possible. These are our students with special needs. When I took that job, I actually thought it was normal that there would be a 30-point gap between kids who had special needs, learning disabilities, developmental delays, et cetera, and the rest of our population. We pushed the envelope on that. We pushed the envelope. And this is really important for our province. These were the performance of our children who were learning English as a second language. They went from a 30-point gap to a 3-point gap. And if you want to see a bunch of teachers who are ready to be open for learning, you start showing them results like this, and they are on fire. They didn't care what I said. They cared what their kids could do. This line's a little shorter. It's our Indigenous results. And when we got to about 2013, our Indigenous chiefs asked us no longer to publish them. They wanted to manage their own data, and so we worked with them on their data, and we are respectful of that request. Graduation rates. Over the time we worked with our secondary schools, we went from 68% of Ontario students graduating from high school on time, to 86.5%. Now, I'm getting the applause, but I have to tell you, it was our teachers, it was our principals, it was our school district leaders. We just kept working with them and helping them ask better questions. The byword in Ontario education in those days in many classrooms was, I wonder if I did this, would I see a better outcome? When was the last time your club had that conversation? I wonder. Now, the problem with wondering is if you actually think it might work, then you have to do it, right? Like that's. We know that during that period of time, we graduated 217,000 more people with an Ontario high school diploma than were there before. And for those of you who are saying, they made it easier. If you make it easy enough, everybody can graduate. No. I had an independent researcher from British Columbia, since they compete with Ontario in the international stuff, right? I had them validate our diploma requirements and the way they were being implemented in our schools, and they informed me that, and I had the evidence to say we didn't make it easier. We built a better ramp for our kids. Now, there are examples of this open to learning and its impact in other fields as well. How about sports? Have you ever watched a coach work with kids or professionals to improve their game? You know, when you're pitching, if you just held the ball like this, and if you just turned about 10 degrees. My physiotherapist was a wonderful coach when I had my knees replaced. Oh, you know what? I think if you turn your foot in 10 degrees, you'll get a better result. And I thought, oh, for goodness sake, 10-degree turn on as I do my exercise. Give me a break. You think I'm bored in a pumpkin patch? But I did it, and he was right. My point is this. We've also watched kids on teams that someone would have described as being uncoachable. Or we've coached them. Kids who, in fact, don't actually listen carefully. Instead, they make up excuses. And instead of listening carefully and acting on that, they make up excuses for why it doesn't work. Or inside, they're saying, yeah, I know better than that. Kind of like I was, but at least I did what I was told. Which my husband would tell you is a rare event, but we'll leave that out. Yeah, he's applauding at the back. There's a huge difference between someone who's coachable and someone who isn't. And it makes all the difference in the results. And finally, I want to share what I consider to be both a leadership and learning story about a flamingo. Now, I love flamingos. We spend a little bit of time in Florida every winter, and I think flamingos are outstanding. They are bright and bold and sparkly, and they don't care. They actually break all the rules about, in the animal world, if you don't want to get eaten by whatever's out there, you don't usually show up as the opposite color to your environment, right? However, they are amazing birds, and there's a story, and this is a true story, about a group in Ottawa, the Audubon Society, who loved to go canoeing in the Ottawa River in the fall. Well, all year, I'm sure they did. But they were out canoeing in October. And among all the Canadian geese gathering in huge flocks on the river, getting ready to migrate south because it's getting too cold, there's a pink flamingo. And they're looking at it and they're saying, like, what in heaven's name is this tropical bird doing in the Ottawa River in late October? My answer is freezing to death if he doesn't get any better. They tried to catch him, and it took them about a week and a half or 2 weeks, and then they lost track of him. And then about first week in November, they actually found him one day, and he was in shallow water where there was a tributary coming in the early morning with ice around his legs. The geese had left, and he didn't go with them. And he's trying to get his beak down to the bottom to get shells and that sort of stuff that they feed on. He was not looking healthy, and it was only going to go one way. They managed to get some friends out, and they netted him and brought him to a vet's. And as the story goes on, it turned out he was an escapee from a petting zoo in Connecticut. More importantly, he was a Chilean flamingo. Now, Chile is in the southern hemisphere. So this Chilean flamingo knew what he was doing. He, in fact, escaped, was living fine in the wilds of Connecticut, and then it started to get cold. And Chilean flamingos know exactly what they have to do when it starts getting cold. Go north. They migrate to the equator to the north. So this bird was spending its time every time it grew up, it woke up in the morning, and it was even colder, it decided it needed to go further north because it knew what it needed to do to survive. Well, they ended up returning this bird to its home in Connecticut. They'd been a little late in clipping wings to get them to stay. But here's a bird who ignored all the evidence around him to the contrary and kept going north, even to its own death. So here's my big question. Are we as Rotary clubs more open to learning than a Chilean flamingo? Might be worth asking that sometimes around your retreat. We have to learn from what's happening around us and adapt our behaviors to change accordingly. Not change for the sake of change, but change for the sake of our survival and our peace and the survival and peace of our world. Because who better than Rotary is going to fix these problems? What gives us peace in our soul? I think it's reaching out to others. What gives us a sense of confidence and satisfaction? What challenges in our lives are worth leaning into? My answer? Rotary. And the superpowers it gives us. Back a few years ago, 2003 or 4, I think, one of our Rotary International presidents was Bishai Radikal from Thailand. I was so impressed with him. He was so thoughtful, and like so many of our Asian leaders, quite reflective of where we needed to go. And one of his comments was that it is the role of Rotary to make kinder the face of the nation and gentler the way of the world. Think about that. It's our job to make kinder the face of the nation and gentler the way of the world. Sign me up for more of that. It's in our hands. Rotary is the catalyst through which we work to create peace and joy in lives in our homes and our towns and around the world. And Rotary gives us so many opportunities to change the world for the better. And not only opportunities, but support. Support. As an individual, I can't accomplish much. But if I can find ways to work with others, I can lean in and contribute and change everything. And change everything as we go along. The foundation and its areas of service also give us a roadmap. That these are the things, and they align, by the way, with the UN goals. These are the things we can spend our life and sweat and tears and blood on. And if we honestly seek to improve the results coming from every project we do and within every club. If we're willing to change our war cry from "we've always done it like this," like I can hardly stay seated and polite in that environment. There are a few times, when somebody would say, I remember early in my career when women were not leading schools, and I was first a member of the Secondary School Principals Association at our school board. They kept saying, "Well, gentlemen, what do we think about this?" as we were trying to. "Oh, yeah, Mary Jane, I'm sorry." The third time the guy did it in the same meeting, I looked at him and I said, "I think I'm not a gentleman. And if you persist, I will find it difficult to be a lady." Anyway, gotta have a sense of humor too, I think, sometimes. If we move away from "we've always done it like this" to I wonder what we could do to make it better. We could capitalize on this marvelous opportunity we have to also teach our next generations that it matters to raise our voices and reach out with eager hands, to model with them that we care enough to listen carefully to their ideas and to implement some of them, even listening to things to which we don't agree. And it's an opportunity to help our children and our grandchildren know that love expands when we share it. Now, our family, I'm going to spend a lot of my time here talking from this point forward about international experiences that we've had. Our family began our international experiences hosting exchange students, and as was said earlier, we've hosted 12 of them over the years. These are some of them, taken either when they were with us or in times that we visited with them since, just some of them. Turns out some of them were so long ago we don't have digital pictures, they're harder to locate. We have an only child, our daughter Michelle, who's now in her 30s. And we wanted for her a really powerful lesson that a family's love expands when there are more people to share it. And so we saw exchange siblings as a way for her to experience sibling rivalry and sibling love. And I will tell you, I was not impressed when I learned from our former French exchange student, who was our first. She was like 17 when she lived with us, and Michelle, our daughter at the time, was 4. And I didn't find out until Michelle was in her 20s when Marie-Ange finally told us about this. But within the first few weeks of her visiting and staying with us, Michelle marched into her bedroom one day, and with all the anger that a 4-year-old can manage, "You don't belong here. You should go away." And she spit at her. My perfect, loving, generous-souled child. I was almost ready to go after her when she was in her 20s and I learned about this. I said, "Marie-Ange, why didn't you tell us?" And she said, "Because you would have disciplined her, and then I would have never won her over." And I have to tell you, they are the closest of friends. Michelle went on her honeymoon last summer, and she and her new husband spent time visiting Marie-Ange in Le Puy-en-Velay, France. Anyway, so these are some of our kids. One of them, this one, Claudia Kranabittel from Austria. We noticed because she wanted to play golf that she did have a little bit of a propensity for cheating and miscounting. We called her, actually we joked with her, Claudia Kranabittel cheat a little. A lovely girl, lovely girl. She was with us about 6 weeks, and I'm just going to, so little vignettes here. She was with us about 6 weeks and sprawled on our living room floor, as most teenagers are. They just got to move too much. They don't fit on furniture, right? So they're on the floor. And she's sitting there, and suddenly she goes, "Oh, I've changed already." I said, "Oh, well, please tell me more. What's going on here?" She said, "Back home," and she was from Austria, "back home, we have a problem with gypsies." I said, "We have a problem with gypsies?" Well, yes, they're Romanian and they come from Southern Europe and they're coming through and into our country. I said, well, I think there's going to be a lot of that over the next few decades because the world's becoming a very difficult place to live in some other places. Well, yes, but they're there, and our government says that's okay. But, they stand around in the school, and they all sit together and eat, and hey, my friends, we sit over in another area to eat, and we don't talk to them. I said, oh. But I've changed now. I'm writing a letter to my friends. I said, what's happening? She said, at my school here, we have people from everywhere in the world in all of our classes. And we sit together and we play games together and we're in sports together and we eat together and we go to the movies together and we go to dances together. And she said, I'm writing my friends and telling them they need to go to the Gypsies and sit down with them. And they need to talk together about how they could change things for everyone. Magic moments when you get to be a host family. And it's not that difficult. As you may have noticed, most teenagers know how to feed themselves out of your fridge. So you know what? It's good. One of the most magical versions of our national anthem I have ever heard was on a cold winter's night in January when you have a minivan, you get to drive exchange kids all over the place. And the snow was just drifting down nicely. It was so cold it crunched when you drove along the road. You know those nights, it's beautiful. And we've got a whole room full of exchange kids, or a whole van full of exchange kids. Some of them had just arrived from Brazil and South America in January and thought they were about to freeze to death. You've been there. Some of them had been there since August and September, which may not be a good plan. They teach each other good things and bad things. But anyway, and the kids from the Southern Hemisphere said, well, what's the Canadian anthem like? And the rest of them, from all over the world, there wasn't a single Canadian kid in that van, started to sing the Canadian national anthem so that they could teach it to the kids who just arrived. We slowed down in that van. We were close to where we were supposed to take them, but we were not going. Listening to the crunch of snow and kids from all those different countries paying respect and honor to our country was cool. You see, you too can do that. Listen to what the kids said today. Lessons in socialization. I will also tell you one of the exchange kids who's close to our heart is our Brazilian daughter, and her father years later said to us, you saved my daughter's life. I said, what? He said, she wasn't a very kind person. Her mother and I didn't think she would make the turn. She came to live with you, and when she came back, she was a kinder and more caring person to both strangers and friends, and also to our servants. We have so much to teach. Now, I'll tell you, our daughter, by the way, from southern France, Marie-Ange, we now have an exchange granddaughter. We have several, actually, grandkids around the world. This one's growing up, Manon. And we just this week, and I'm so excited about it, Manon presented her mother with an announcement that our exchange great-granddaughter, or great-grandson, is on their way. It's so cool. You got to do this. You just have to be involved. Because all these young people help us understand our ability to change the world for the better echoes for generations. It reminds us to have hope, even in darker times. Oh, really? Oh, 5 minutes. Oh, I thought I had 45. Okay, well, my apologies. Here we go. 10 minutes, I figured I was going to bring it in. Anyway, all right. We've also done some volunteer service in Brazil, 600 kilometers up the Amazon River, supporting a medical and dental clinic, working to create a university program focused on entrepreneurialism and tourism at its core. Our daughter came with us on our most recent trip there, back back when it was moving along and helping the university this way. When she was in grade 3 and 4, she asked, her father had gone down there to do some volunteer work, and she asked if she could take her milk money from school and carry water to school each day and use that milk money to pay for water wells in Brazil. So she did. So when she was 14 and came down with us, she got to visit her water wells and meet hundreds of kids who had never had any water other than that which she provided, whose parents pointed out vegetable gardens that didn't exist until they were able to get water in their little town. Pretty powerful stuff. And amazing lessons for your kids and grandkids and all their friends if you can figure out how you can include them in your Rotary missions overseas. We need to consciously change and train the next generation. Our daughter, by the way, knowing that this is a time-limited opportunity, had a chance to administer some polio drops to some kids at the medical clinic there. And we wanted that for her because we all know that we're not going to be able to do that in a few years any longer because there will be no more polio in the world. And speaking of that, we also ended up traveling to India, where we had the marvelous opportunity to lead a National Immunization Day excursion with about 30 other Rotarians. The people there, I have so much respect for the people in India, for the health authorities, for the volunteers, for the various groups. My word, they work so hard. One weekend, and we were a teeny little part of it just to experience it. We vaccinated 175 million, Bob, am I right here? Million? Children. In a weekend. And the Indian authorities here in Uttar Pradesh wanted us to meet this young person because they were convinced he was among the last polio cases to be seen in India. And he was. We had a chance to vaccinate little ones. And in this sea of kids pushing in on us, my friend and I sitting at a little plastic table and a little plastic chair, sea of kids coming to us to be vaccinated, right? Suddenly, the crowd parts and a tractor pulls up with a family loaded on the top of the tractor coming in for market day. And, I mean, as only a vehicle in India could be loaded. And they stopped and they watched us for a while, and I nodded to them. And then this little bundle of green silk was passed across the heads of all the children between us and the tractor. And when I had it in my hands, it was squirming. And as I opened it up, there was a beautiful little baby about 3 weeks old in there. And so I gave her the drops. And I looked at her and I said, "Darling, you won't remember meeting me, but you will remember, and you may not remember Rotary, but you will dance at your wedding because of Rotarians like me from all parts of the world." Yeah. Anyway, moving on as quickly as I can. Just give me about an extra minute or two here and I'll do it, all right? I want to talk to you about a project or a part of the Rotary Foundation that not a lot of Rotarians take advantage of right now. It's called a vocational training team. I had the opportunity to lead a vocational training team to train teachers in South Africa. We had a governor who had been on a group study exchange to South Africa, and his dream was when he was governor to do a vocational training team of teachers and school leaders to South Africa. South Africa has 19 official languages. I thought Canada was challenging with 2. And so they really wanted to learn how we worked with people on second language acquisition. Because if your language of instruction is Afrikaans and English, and your child comes from one of the villages, then we know that they're going to have a tough time. We provided workshops to hundreds of teachers, literally. Overcrowded classrooms, etc. And beautiful kids. We asked a principal, well, you know, we brought some money from our clubs. We brought some money from our clubs, and we want to know what's your priority in a school where kids wore coats and 5 of them were sitting at a desk, and nobody had pencils, and not everybody had books. And the principal looked me in the eye and said, "We want a fence around the schoolyard," right? And I said, "Oh, a fence? Well, I know better." So I said, "And why would you think a fence is a priority?" She said, "Because there's a coal mine here, and the single miners' residence here, and they walk past our school." And in those days, they believed that if you had sex with a virgin, you would cure yourself of AIDS. So we can't let our primary girls, primary, 6, 7, outside to play in the playground. So we'd like a fence. And with tears in my eyes, I said, "Yeah, you got your fence. I got money. We have money for a fence. Our Rotary clubs will cover that." We need to support all of our kids. And this school, by the way, was doing just that in homes where 10-year-olds raised the rest of the family because all the adults in their lives had died. They came to the school for lunch, including this developmentally challenged kid, and every day we sat on our knees in the school hallway, feeding kids. Feed the Children is an amazing organization. Last location, I attended another vocational training team in Ghana. We worked with teachers, we worked in classrooms, we worked with kindergartners in the tree school because they didn't have enough room. So, of course, our Rotary clubs have built schools there. We make connections, though. We make connections, and the connections that we make as Rotarians are critical because in that same village in northwestern Ghana, our Rotary district, with the help of all of our clubs, has built a hospital, an orphanage, a neonatal unit. This is an unusual view of an incubator for us in North America, but that's what it is. 5 babies sharing an incubator, right? We've built a sheltered workshop for developmentally delayed adults. We've done all sorts of good things. And Rotary is the vehicle through which we can do those things. Sustainability, long-term progress, is the result of the bonds we build with places around the world. And it all gives back to us in the most precious of ways. One of the schools we helped in Ghana was attended to by a Rotarian in Windsor now, a neonatologist, Dr. Godfrey Bashia. He grew up in a dirt floor school with a slate and a Jesuit priest who saw his promise and sent him on with scholarships. And so he became Windsor's only neonatologist when our daughter was born 6, 7 weeks early. He was in the delivery room with us. And we have our daughter today, I believe, because of the investment of a Jesuit priest at a time when I was in elementary school myself, in a man who had promise and a challenged background. We don't know what the ripples are of our work, but I will tell you they are incredible. And they're yours for the taking. They're yours for the supporting, simply by saying yes to some of these programs. Because I'm a Rotarian, I've learned we can make miracles. Because I'm a Rotarian, I've learned that we can make life better for billions of people in several generations around the world. Because I'm a Rotarian, I have learned that I'm not alone on those days in which I feel overwhelmed or powerless, even today. And we are certainly neither overwhelmed nor powerless when we work together. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your Rotary work. You give me hope, enduring hope, for a better world. And so I respectfully ask this question of you today. Are you taking full advantage of the opportunities to learn in this Rotary Conference, in your clubs, and in your year? And if you are, what new action will you take, locally and globally, together as a result? Thank you. See, I had it down. I had it down. Thank you.
Unbelievable as usual. Mary Jean and I'm Jim Ives, I'm from the St. Clair Rotary Club, and Mary Jean and I started in Rotary the same year. And I have learned so much from Mary Jean over the years that has impacted me. And I grew up in a Rotary family, so it's great to learn from those who are learning as well. But Mary Jean, we appreciate the message, and it's important that we remember what we can take back to our clubs and ensure that they carry on. And I would be remiss if I did not quote my brother-in-law, who was a 10th grade English teacher. He used to stand in front of his class at the beginning of every semester and said, "Ignorance is not knowing. Active pursuit of ignorance is stupidity." So please don't let your clubs be ignorant. We need to make sure that they hear these messages, that they understand the importance of what we do and how we enhance the world. And we would be remiss if we didn't thank Mary Jean for all the work she does around the world. And Mary Jean was the one person that really illustrated the whole point that the world is our neighborhood. The entire world is our neighborhood because it is so easy to get around and connect. So on behalf of the district, thank you so much for being here. And we have a gift for you that was chosen especially for you. And like all the other speakers that we've had, we've chosen those gifts especially for them as well. I'm amazed at how many of our speakers really like chocolate and whiskey. So
Whiskey, exactly. Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, all great. It's great. Thank you. I like chocolate too, so. Jim, thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you last night, and longtime Rotarian. I stand before lunch, so I'm going to actually talk while I ask you to do a couple of things. We're going to start in the middle, so these three tables, can I have you stand up, please? Stand up, stand up. Head to your respective, we're having a buffet lunch, so if you could head to the buffet area, they'll direct you what end to start at. There'll be you'll figure it out from there. So let me just chat on a couple things while we just keep things moving along. The bar is open for anyone who would like to purchase an alcoholic beverage during lunch. I will remind you as well, you've got a couple of apps that on your phone. So there's a couple of apps. If you need help with them, please come and see someone in the IT section at the front. This is our conference app, and the other one is for our scheduled events this afternoon, and we'll talk more about those as well. The Peace Pole is another initiative. There's 250,000 peace poles that are being put up in the world today. This is not a new initiative. In Stratford, if you'd like to go today, I went there this morning before coming here today. There's 3 peace poles. It's 500-meter walk on a beautiful day as well. September 21st is the International Day of Peace. If I can ask the next series of tables, if you could please stand up, the next series of tables, and head over for lunch. And part of this is it's a permanent display at what's called Gallery Stratford. And it says, "May peace prevail on earth." So we encourage that'll be one of your opportunities. Again, there's 15 spots. It could be gone now for the warehouse tour if you want to tour that. I encourage you again, our hypnotist comedian, table number 9, will get you to come up. Table number 9, please stand up and head over to the buffet. Table number 9, please. Table number 9, please head over. Perfect. Great, okay, super. And our hypnotist comedian tonight, 9 o'clock, is called Dale Kay. He's been on Disney cruises. He's been over 100 cities, the Atlantis Resort, so we have an incredible opportunity tonight. Elizabeth Gaffney is the one that will be selling Put Your Friend Under Hypnosis or Your Enemy, $5. If you want out, just pay $30. Similar to Mary Jean, though, I will tell you, Elizabeth Gaffney, 25-year plus Rotarian, master's degree. She's